Hi guys, welcome back to UK here. Kind of a hobby gaming vid again rather than roleplay one. Today I'm asking what on earth ever happened to collectible card games? Um, Magic the Gathering was the first and is the longest lasting, longest running, arguably in that most popular of the collectible card games out there, which is kind of what I'm wanting to talk about. I first learnt of Magic the Gathering not long after it started. There's ads for the game started to appear in sort of like Dungeon and Dragon magazines. Used to have these lovely like full page ads. One that always sort of sticks in my head, I think, was the Ice Age one. I could, or was it one of them anyway? And they used to do this really cool thing. This is obviously back before the days of the internet. You'd have like a series of cards around the edges, and they would show you the card, but with none of the text or symbols. So you just had the basic look of the card and the artwork. And I have to admit, I was always intrigued by that. But what turned me off of Magic the Gathering back then was the amount of times I would see in gaming magazines, and you'd get letters from role players basically saying they turned up to a game. A couple of the guys that got there first and was playing Magic the Gathering, and then it'd be just like, start the game now. So no, one more game of Magic, one more game of Magic, and eventually people got fed up. Magic the Gathering was getting in the way of their role playing. People more interested in that than the game. And I just kind of think, well, yeah, if you're going to have something like that, then I don't want to know. And it took probably a couple of years before I caught the bug. We had a magazine that ran for 2 years here in the early 90s called Arcane. My mum bought me a 2 year subscription for Christmas one year, starting with issue one. And the very first issue was when Alliance's expansion came out. And it came with 3 cards on the front. And I remember them. You had Benthic Explorers, Foresight, and Varchild's Crusader. And I can remember looking at these cards and going, the artwork's really cool. I have no idea what the game mechanics mean. And the fluff or flavour text on the bottom of the cards was intriguing. And it was only when a friend of mine had gone off to university in London for a couple of years, and he came back and he started buying into it, and we played a few games, and I was actually, yeah, I quite like this. And it sort of spread amongst our local guys, and we did play it for, wow, well, I'll say several years. We had a club going that would meet I think it was like every Tuesday night down one of the pubs. We'd play tournaments, we'd do pre-releases, things like that. But it was quite casual back then, compared to the overtly competitive nature of the game now. But that kind of sparked an interest, I suppose, in collectible card games at the time. We started playing Blood Wars, which was one of the AD&D universe ones from TSR that dealt with the wars in the Outer Planes. Did try Spellfire, which is their normal sort of D&D fantasy one, and that didn't quite work out. It was a bit pants. Played Illuminati New World Order for a few years. The original was it called Middle Earth the Wizards or something like that, which was a really good, although complex, collectible card game of storytelling. I even tried the Star Trek and Star Wars ones. Star Wars ones I quite like, but Star Trek one I liked quite a bit, being more of a Trekkie. But I found that both of those had massively complicated rules. Um, but they were obviously very popular. Once you got to the end of the 90s, I lost interest in Magic the Gathering because the cards themselves were becoming quite twinky. The power creep was becoming extremely visible, even to a casual player like me. I was looking at it and going, I can see where this is heading. And you started getting cards that were repetitive. So the idea of Magic the Gathering is that you can only, other than basic lands, you can only have 4 of a given card in your deck. But when they start to release the same card with a different name, or the same card with an alternate cost, which is essentially the same thing, I was like, no. Especially when a lot of these were counter spells and things like that that allowed you to control the game. It got very boring and didn't really play any collectible card games after that for a while. Till Call of Cthulhu one came out from Fantasy Flight. Um, Tried the Star Wars one that they released fairly recently, which is a bit pants. Um, and Lord of the Rings, the card game, also by Fantasy Flight. Although living card games are a bit different because they are, at least in the case of the Call of Cthulhu LCG and the Lord of the Rings ones, they are designed that you can play it solo, although with a bit more of a challenge. Um, but slightly different. Anyway, to get back to what I was sort of wanting this video about, the 90s were kind of chocker with card games. In addition to the ones that I've mentioned, I remember seeing quite a few sort of like cheap third party ones. I even picked up some stuff for one, I think it was called something like Galactic Empires. Really cheap artwork, really cheaply made cards. But the idea was you were an empire and you could be on a space station, build ships, and you did all this, and then you played events like Space Dragons and asteroids and whatnot in Europe. But just like with today, trying to find, unless you had people who were already playing that game or willing to play that game, it was almost impossible to you know, get into it. Once we got the Call of Cthulhu card game, I actually ran the tournaments for that probably a couple of times a month for about 2 years, and we had quite a strong local group, and we even got some people down from like elsewhere in the country, a couple of times, um, but that sort of faded away. Once they did change to the LC, well, they didn't even change to the LCG model. They changed to the LC. Rephrase that. When they started doing the packs and it wasn't random, suddenly people seemed to lose a lot of interest in that game for some reason. Um, but but my point being, collectible card games are everywhere. There was a variety of them. I used to read a magazine called, I think it was called Inquest. There was another one, I can't think what it's called though. But one of the things, even though these were games that a lot of the games they covered, I didn't play. I did really enjoy reading the reviews of it and looking through winning decks from tournaments. Although I didn't know, anything about the game or whatever, I enjoy looking. I used to enjoy looking at the titles of cards, what people's decks were, especially with things like the Star Trek and Star Wars ones, because obviously their names were quotes or things from the films. So you could kind of pick in your head what was going on with the deck. And I used to love things like that. But obviously in America, I think collectible card games were far more popular. But it just seemed that once you kind of hit the early OOs, interest in that sort of died up, or died off, I should say. Um, and now, um, outside of the say the LCGs, which Fantasy Flight do, um, which are soloable for the most part, there doesn't appear to be collectible card games. It's just Magic the Gathering now, and nothing else. And that's been going for nearly 25 years or something. It's getting a bit long in the tooth. It's still very, very popular. But what happened to collectible card games? Again, going back to Fantasy Flight, I tried to get people into playing the. I can't think of the name of it now. They did a Warhammer 40,000 LCG. I think it ran for a couple of years. And we did do sort of like monthly tournaments for that. We had one guy who's a big Magic player, but he would play this if we built a deck and let him use it, and he was quite happy to do that. But we could never get people into playing anything other than Magic on a decent level. People just don't want to know. I mean, some of it's cost, I assume, but I think a lot of it is just interest. But, and I'm kind of waffling here, I know. But what happened to collectible card games? Where did they all go? Decipher lost the licenses to the Star Trek and Star Wars ones, and then the company sort of like folded. All like the little ones disappeared and folded. It just seems now, if you want to play a collectible card game, it has to be Magic the Gathering. And with 25 years of plus of cards behind it, you are, if you're the sort of person who, like me, would be a collector, you've got no chance. If you want to play it now, you're going to be running into people who have spent a fortune on it and keep up to date with the modern cards and all this. And I know amongst my lot, they only like to play one sort of format, what they call Commander. And I just kind of think that it's not viable for someone getting into the game now to really do it unless they're prepared to pay a small fortune on it. Um, I just don't know. This is just a topic that came into my head the other day. I can't remember why. I think I was just riding to or from work, and it just suddenly popped into my head. Whatever happened to collectible card games? That there used to be a veritable horde of them out on the market, and now there's pretty much sod all. And I kind of think it's a shame that that's happened, and I think it's a shame that Magic the Gathering is like the survivor of it all, and even that I think is off-putting to new people coming into it. Um, anyway, I'd be interesting to see your thoughts if you manage to sit through what's this nearly 12 minutes of this. Um, um, whether you think the same or whether collectible card games have had their day. Do you think Magic is difficult to get into for a new person now, a new player? Or you've got thoughts on the old card games? I'd love to hear your memories. If you used to play one of those old collectible card games, I'd love to hear your memories on it. I think that would be awesome sauce. So comment below, and we'll see what discussion we can get going. Anyway, thank you for putting up this vid. I've now just gone over the 12-minute mark. Have a good day. Happy gaming, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.